Okay, maybe we should start. I'm just sure that we have plenty of things to discuss today, and a very hot discussion ahead of us. So thanks everyone for joining this conference, which is organized by Blockchain HUC UK, which is the blockchain club that we have created together with Ilya. My name is Nick. And we are doing that in collaboration with HUC UK alumni, which is actually doing great events and helping us to broadcast these webinars to our community and outside as well, the HUC community. So as a quick reminder, so what we are doing with blockchain HUC. So we were created in 2017 to share knowledge on the Web3 field. We are sharing education content about blockchain and cryptocurrencies, but also all the different verticals of this ecosystem. As a reminder, we also organize events on a quite regular basis, so either in person or online. And we organize events around several pillars or series: infrastructure, DeFi, sustainability, and VC in Web3. So today's webinar belongs specifically to the infrastructure series, and will be introduced by Ilya.
Hello guys, thanks Nicolas for the introduction. So yes, with the development of a more trustless, permissionless, and ultimately decentralized world, the possibilities of blockchain technologies are huge. This concept of decentralization is not easy, not trivial to apprehend when checking the reality of blockchain application implementation. When one tries to conceptualize a decentralized activity, we realize that everything is often centralized in one way or another. This is true for governance, but also for the infrastructure, and also the technical stack that are underpinning any DeFi project. Looking at cloud computing alone, high reliance on a handful of cloud providers is often shown as a potential single point of failure. For example, 53% of Ethereum's mainnet nodes are hosted by AWS. This webinar will aim at covering two main questions. What is the current landscape of the cloud ecosystem for blockchain activities, and in particular cloud computing? And second, what does the future cloud ecosystem for blockchain looks like? We will start with these two questions for around 40 minutes, and we will arrange some time at the end, obviously, for Q&A.
Thanks, Ilya. So let's start with the presentation of the three panelists. So we're very excited in order to welcome these three panelists, which represent three different perspectives about the cloud ecosystem. So that's why the discussion will be quite rich, and hopefully not actually going into too much rounds, but I kind of like these controversial views across the three panelists. So we have what I would say one incumbent traditional cloud service provider with OVH Cloud, with a representative called Omar. I do know that OVH Club has a very ambitious blockchain strategy to support the blockchain ecosystem. The second panelist is Andrea, and I will name it as a so-called disruptor for the cloud service infrastructure. And this project aims to provide decentralized compute power. And the third project is very revolutionary Web3 social project, which has decentralization really at the heart of the project and is represented by JT. And the project is called OneUp, right? But I wish actually, after highlighting the three different projects, I leave the floor to the panelists themselves to talk about their own project, but also their own journey to the blockchain ecosystem. So let me start with you, maybe Andrea.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, my name is Angela. Anyway,
Sorry, Angela.
I'm Angela Grigio. I'm CEO and co-founder of Bidatagray. Bidatagray, it's a blockchain software development company based in Dublin, Ireland. Let's say a little bit of the background about me. I have a legal background, so it's completely different from the usual background that we find in the Web3 space or technology space in general. I was finishing my studies at the university when me and the other co-founder, which is also my partner in the business and in life, we were passionate about blockchain technology and about this very important segment and this industry, which is the cloud computing industry, which is at the base of everything. Every application needs cloud computing to run. And we decided to start this journey, which is not so easy, let's say. It's a journey of passion, but also a lot of learn. We studied a lot the technology, the market. We started to code also a little bit, even if we have our team of developers that are working with us on this project. We are developing a new peer-to-peer cloud computing network, which can provide decentralized GPU and CPU cloud computing for different applications and also protocols. I don't know if my presentation is enough. Maybe I can go directly to the questions or the other.
Yeah. So that's I think it's a high level, very interesting project to get more information about. But leave it for the moment. I'd like maybe to pass on to the next panelist. Omar, do you want to present yourself and the company that you work for?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Nicola, for the floor. My name is Omar Abi-Issa, Senior Business Development Manager at OVH Cloud. I've been working for OVH Cloud around 4 years. I've been through multiple roles, although, you know, blockchain is my passion. And I've been in this ecosystem since 2016, where I, took all my savings and invested them all. Then in the bull market of 2018, I got wiped out completely. I lost all my savings, and I actually joined OVH Cloud in 2019 and, understood the bits and pieces about the underlying technology and the infrastructure and dived into why did I lose all the money. That's how the passion began. And since then, I was very passionate about blockchain and started building and helping build globally the ecosystem at OVH Cloud for Web3 and crypto companies. Covering obviously the infrastructure that, as Angela rightfully said, is the forefront of the technology itself. Yeah.
An interesting story. I mean, a lot of projects start crashing and actually rebounds very well. So it's also true for individual journeys. So thanks, Omar, for sharing that. And JT, can you talk about yourself and your project?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm JT. I'm the CEO of OneUp. OneUp is a new social network. So it's a decentralized social network built on Hedera Hashgraph. We have a privacy protecting ad model that pays users in real time for the data, for the ads that they watch, just like Brave software, but in social media. We also have a metaverse, which is digital twin cities. So New York, Miami, Toronto. And then what we're doing is using augmented reality, we are superimposing the art and avatar behavior in the metaverse onto the real streets of real cities. So the social network itself, the mobile social network is very much decentralized, but then the metaverse itself is very public facing. So we have a very interesting architecture. My background, I started off as a cybersecurity consultant at Deloitte. I moved into data privacy. I did the GDPR consultancy back in 2015, 2016. And then basically, I really hate Facebook. And so I was the guy on the news when Cambridge Analytica, the scandal broke, election interferences, and data privacy was at the core of how, bad actors were able to micro-target millions of citizens. If you've seen Don't Look Up on Netflix, I was the guy that Leo DiCaprio studied for that role. Those were my TV interviews. And so from there, I set about creating a new social network that had a privacy protecting ad model at its core, the same as Brave software. But about 18 months ago, so we built the social media app. The metaverse became a thing. So I had to go and get metaverse experience. And in the last year, so I did the metaverse and NFT creative and architecture for Estee Lauder and Louis Vuitton. So I finished the Louis Vuitton. If you saw the Louis Vuitton Nike collaboration, that the metaverse NFT creative was me and my team. So we finished that like about 8 months ago, and then we've come back to OneUp now. We've built the social network, the metaverse, and then mixed reality, which is augmented reality access through the app. So lots of moving parts, and that's why I'm here.
Super, thank you, JT. So thanks, Angela, Omar, JT. So let's maybe start with the first question. So Ilya, floor is yours now.
Yes, sure. Thank you guys for the presentations. So we can kick off with what is the current state of the cloud ecosystem that supports blockchain economy. So reality check, challenges, and the role of your respective companies, obviously, in such a landscape. Maybe we can start with you, Omar. What is your view about the cloud industry currently, about how the cloud industry currently supports the blockchain economy? And more particularly, how does the traditional cloud services like yours adapt its offering to the blockchain industry and also contribute to its development?
Sure. Thank you very much for the question. Ilya, I think it's a very good and a very deep question. So starting, you rightfully said that 50% of over 50, I think you mentioned 53% of Ethereum mainnet is hosted at AWS. And so where is that decentralization if everything is going into one cloud service provider, right? In my opinion, it's not a coincidence, and it's going to be an intro to a very long train thought on how a cloud service provider supports blockchain industry. So looking at their market cap as AWS, if we look outside of the blockchain technology itself, they host around 50% of every single technology, R&D productions, developments. So in a technology that is powered by cloud at the moment, it's not a coincidence that they have over 50% of the market cap itself. Now, to elaborate on that train thought, it would be beneficial looking at it from a different angle. So what is the infrastructuring that is powering the blockchain technology itself? And now deep diving into that, we could look at the blockchain ecosystem through different subdivisions. Looking at the front end, or let's start with the back end. Looking at the back end, you would have all those blockchain networks, layer ones, layer twos, inter-blockchain communication protocols, testnets, mainnets of the world that are running the infrastructure itself. Looking at the front end, you would see all those decentralized applications, decentralized platforms, decentralized finance running their trading application platforms. And in between of those two subdivisions, you would see all the automations, API technologies, but as well on the other side, the validators. Let's look at the proof of stake networks, all those validators on a proof of stake staking companies and such. They are all running and softwares running on infrastructure itself, right? Now, looking at those creators, it's a very, very innovative and a young vertical. So most of those companies, and I'm sure that both Angela or JT could refer to that, they are mainly OpEx driven. They are mainly VC funded or privately invested, but they are not companies, or very few companies that, let's say, made it in the likes of JP Morgan Chases, and very CapEx oriented and driven by massive funds, in which they could build themselves infrastructure that could be decentralized, not only over a single data center, a few racks of servers, but throughout a few locations in each continent. That takes millions and millions of dollars, which young companies do not have, right? And this is exactly the entry to answering how a cloud service provider like OVH Cloud would be able to support that. Because cloud service providers like us, we do have 33 data centers, globally. So to elaborate, a multi-cloud So a multi-cloud and global decentralization of infrastructure supports the nature of the blockchain, which is the decentralization itself, but as well the networking. You need to have a protection of networking security. So all those DDoS services or KMS and such. Now, if a blockchain company, a young blockchain company, wants to develop something and they are looking to, let's imagine, creating a chain, a blockchain database that would be in some nature decentralized, they wouldn't have the capex to build that themselves. Therefore, a cloud service provider stands with an OpEx-based pay-as-you-go business model for those services to support that. And therefore, that's how we, let's say, start. In regards to elaborating on how OVH Cloud, I can talk about OVH Cloud. How do we support blockchain companies? I would first stand on the point that it's all about the ecosystem for young companies. Other than services that are suitable to support the technological stack that is needed to generate and create and build on top of, we as OVH Cloud are supporting those companies with marketing activities, with partnering with those young companies and helping them with getting funded. We have startup program to help them kickstart their projects with some credits to use on public cloud services, create those chains on Kubernetes, whatever the stack is. But as well, we are tapping into VC funds that could help even further. But as well, marketing activities, as I told you, building case studies around them, getting them out to the world for people and for the whole world to see actually that the solution is out there, is getting built, which often young companies or young entrepreneurs, they don't have that expertise just of yet, right? That would be it in regards to supporting those companies, in regards to the roadmap and how OVH Cloud is supporting blockchain technology itself. I would say that we have all the solutions that is needed to create a blockchain company on all the subdivisional fronts that we set, from the backend, starting from Kubernetes services, to validators, mainly dedicated service, if you need them in any location, connected on the same kind of network, to supporting key management system, which is in the roadmap. We are planning even to launch imagery, so you can take a service, for example, a virtual machine that could have a pre-prepared, ready imagery for, let's say, Ethereum staking node if you need it. But that's to come. I'm not going to too much talk about the roadmap. I don't want to, too much reveal the strategy of OVH Cloud. Let's leave it as a mystery for now. And, yeah.
Thank you, Omar. That's very clear. Thanks. Maybe Angela, how would you picture the cloud industry from your perspective? What are the main pain points you are trying to address with your company, Datagray? And what are the main use cases you are pursuing?
Okay, thank you, Ilya, for the question. Yeah, first, I want to to repeat something that already Omar said about the technologies, new technologies, including the blockchain technology, is still built on top of existing models and traditional models. And in the cloud computing industry, we can see an evident, let's say, use case that there are few main providers that are the providers of cloud computing for all the application, both in the Web 2, but especially in the Web 3 space, and also for protocols. So we have AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Azure, and other similars. And a very concrete example in the Web3 space, the Web3, the Ethereum network with 53% of their nodes, which are hosted inside the AWS nodes. And another important example is that these nodes are also geographically centralized in just 2 countries, US and Germany. And this is very, let's say, threatened. Because if these two countries decide to deliver policies or regulations against this network, against decentralized network, the entire Ethereum network could fall immediately. So this is a concrete risk that other protocols are experiencing, because also Solana, Polkadot, Cardano, so all the main proof-of-stake networks are following the same path of Ethereum. So most of their nodes are cloud-hosted inside server farms. And this is a clear contradiction from my point of view of what are the founding principles of the Web3 industry and the blockchain technology itself, because the blockchain technology has been created to provide decentralization, to be trustless, permissionless, to be censorship resistant. So we at BDataGray believe that it's important it's necessary to tackle the deepest layer, so the cloud computing layer, trying to provide a decentralized service, a real decentralized service, to mitigate, at least mitigate strategic risks that otherwise could be potentially, let's say, points of failures for the entire Web3 industry. At BDataGray, we are developing DataGen infrastructure. As said, it's a blockchain-based peer-to-peer cloud computing network, which is able to provide cloud computing, GPU and CPU for different kinds of applications, Web3, and mostly also protocols, because we think that we have to tackle also the protocols, which are the base layer of the entire industry. We can provide the cloud computing in a very efficient way with an on-chain verification of off-chain computational workloads. It's something that sounds difficult and strange and weird, but what does it mean? So our key feature is to to pair the final user, which is requiring the cloud computing to the network, with the validator of our blockchain. The validator is the supplier of cloud computing, is the machine that it's providing that is processing the request of cloud computing. This match happens on the base of the latency time, which is the geographical distance between the final user and the validator. So the final user sends the request to the validator, so the supplier receives it, process it, and send it back to the user. It's a very simple loop. This loop happens off-chain, because in this way we can be efficient, we can be very fast, we have a lower latency time, because we don't have to respect that time of propagation inside the entire network of the requests, let's say. But what is happening on-chain? Otherwise, it's something that is happening only off-chain. So the on-chain element, it's fundamental, obviously, otherwise it's not blockchain technology. On-chain, the validator is writing the result of the processing power and inside the block of the blockchain. This is like an immutable registry of all the computational works done inside the network. In this way, it's possible to verify it, to check it, and also to find malicious behavior in case there are malicious behavior and false inputs. So this is the network that can be efficient. In this way, this very innovative matching allows us to be efficient, to be faster with a lower latency time. But at the same time, we want to also try to tackle the real problem, which is, as said, the decentralization, not just the decentralization of the software, because it's simple to decentralize the software, but we wanted to tackle the decentralization of the hardware level. So where the machines are physically located in the world. And this is possible because having this matching that it's happening on the base of the latency time, so the geographical distance, it's possible. In our network, we will have different use cases. Let's say validators that in some part of the world where there are big server farms, the internet connection is very fast, they will continue to be cloud hosted inside server farms because it's easier from a logistic point of view. And these validators can serve a user, for example, in the US or in Europe, in other contexts, in other areas of the world where there are clusters of users, but there aren't server farms, there isn't a very fast internet connection. In this case, it's very probable to have validators that will be independent validators with the bare metal machines or local server farms. which at the end, it's also cheaper and also more sustainable. So this is our way to improve the decentralization of the hardware. But this improvement, it's also an improvement of the overall resiliency of the entire network. And the most important thing that we can tackle in this way is also the censorship resistance, because we can't, let's say, forget the censorship problem that can happen in any moment, in any time. An example, very concrete, it happened to Solana network last October. The 39% of the nodes that were hosted by Hetzner, which is a cloud computing provider, which is centralized, they shut down completely 39% of the nodes. And there was a high risk of the entire network of Solana that could be completely down because of the provider of cloud computing. So this is my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. JT, can you please tell us a bit more about your ambitious development plan on your revolutionary Web3 project that is all about decentralization? And can you tell us a bit more also on what is or what will be your typical use of cloud services? How you see the cloud ecosystem from your own perspective, any limitation to deliver the goals of your project?
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting from our project is we have the extremes of both ends of the spectrum. So, you know, if we're talking about decentralization, what you're suggesting is some level of privacy, right, on the back end. So our social network is built on Hedera Hashgraph, and each user has a OneUp wallet, which is where all of their OneUp tokens are stored. It's where all of the digital assets, the NFTs, are stored. And we have this data, you know, the privacy protecting ad model, which requires, you know, private cloud services in order to maintain that level of privacy and that decentralization. But when you think about like actual Web3 use cases, social media, and specifically like mixed reality and metaverse, you know, those are collaborative, social, public-facing kind of services. So I think the big shift that we're seeing, especially from cloud providers, is moving to kind of a hybrid cloud model, and specifically like engineering bespoke hybrid cloud kind of architectures that help you reconcile the desire and need for privacy and security in order for you to maintain that level of decentralization, whilst also providing like very heavy functional front ends in the public spaces. So, and then the real thing here is like, you know, latency is the problem, right? So for instance, we're installing mixed reality in Times Square. So imagine we're broadcasting the Knicks game up in the sky. You can have 3,000 people inside Times Square. Now, the thing is, all the augmented reality filters themselves. So some augmented reality filters that we're broadcasting, right, are going to be publicly hosted so that every single person can go and see the same thing, which requires like graphic processing units and like really bespoke like public hosting architecture. But we are, so augmented reality filters, we are selling as digital assets, which are hosted privately inside the OneUp users' wallets. So you go into the OneUp NFT auction place, you buy a luxury premium augmented reality filter, which then allows you to access that on the front end. So I think the real challenge for us is like, can you reconcile a properly decentralized private cloud service with a publicly hosted cloud service? And so that's what I'm seeing from like Microsoft and NVIDIA, is they're being much more proactive in kind of advertising bespoke hybrid cloud architectures to reconcile that problem. And I think, you know, I think the graphics processing units is going to be really big for us in order to get that latency time down, especially for the mixed reality installations. But, you know, I think that's the big trend that we're seeing is, you know, providers moving from out of the box kind of solutions to more bespoke hybrid cloud models. So that's where we see things going.
Thanks.
Thank you, JT.
Yeah, thank you, GT. So, I mean, one question for you, GT. So, I mean, what do you think that you know, cloud service provider do well and not actually with respect to accompany a project like yours. So are you already at this stage where you are in implementation mode and then you are engaging with services? What is your take here?
Yeah, well, so for the moment, right, so everything's working pretty well right now because we only have the social network that's live, and there are limited amounts of processing problems that we have. We are releasing the first mixed reality city kind of in the next 60 days. Now, the thing that we're missing, and the cloud providers are struggling with these graphics processing units, because there are two gaming engines, the two best gaming engines in the world. There's Unity, and then there's Unreal Engine 5. And Unity is kind of a little bit cartoony, but Unreal Engine 5 looks like more real than real life. So like, it's really difficult to get that amount of processing power. But the thing is, we haven't actually launched it yet, but we've been basically told that to expect some latency issues, and then we're going to have to kind of solve it as we launch. Because, you know, we've got integrations, for instance, with our PC metaverse, so that an avatar can walk around the square, let's say the PC version of Times Square with their avatar. And then with your phone, you're going to be able to see the hologram of that avatar walk around in real time in the square and interact with it. So that kind of like real-time, instantaneous interaction is going to be a big technical problem to solve. But from the sounds of things, we've just got to throw a lot of GPUs at it. And that is something that traditional cloud providers haven't specialized in. But I think in order to realize the true potential of the metaverse and like constant social instant communication, then basically moving into kind of some more heavy machinery to kind of get that latency down to zero is what we're saying.
Yeah. Thanks, GT. Very interesting perspective. So before jumping on the second question, so there's one question from the audience, and I guess it's maybe for you, Angela. So how do you see the latency time problem in the decentralized cloud computing model versus the centralized? Is decentralized cloud computing faster or slower?
So as now is the market in the decentralized space, I mean, there are other projects that are trying to decentralize the cloud computing service. And at the moment, the latency time, it's an important problem, let's say, because centralized providers are almost to zero, let's say, the latency time, while decentralized projects, since they have maybe the model of the propagation to the entire network of the request, obviously there is a certain amount of time that you have to wait to have a response, a coming back of your request. Obviously, it's a problem that can be solved. In fact, in our model, having this matching, this pairing on a one-to-one, and having the computation that happens off-chain, we try to solve the latency time, because from the beginning, we understood that the main problem was not just to be like cheaper or like to compete in terms of cost with centralized providers, because it's possible, but trying to compete on the terms of the technical things that we can implement in our infrastructure. And the latency time, it's one of the main problems. Since the network, it has to be decentralized. So we found we have this trick, let's say, if we want to call it in this way, of the matching to solve this problem of latency time. Obviously, this kind of network, also my network, I mean the DataGen infrastructure, can be so fast for certain use cases like high frequency trading, because there in that occasion you need milliseconds, friction of milliseconds. But for other kind of use cases like online gaming, online metaverse, DeFi application, validators of proof of stake blockchains, we think that we can provide a valuable alternative to centralized providers. So yeah.
Thank you, Angela. So, I mean, as you understand, the first question covered the state of the ecosystem. We've already a lot of pain points, but we have incumbents, doing great strategies to support the blockchain ecosystem. We have one disruptor and one actually project that also has spotted area of development or needs to deliver its promises. So let's turn now a little bit towards the future, what the potential future of the cloud ecosystem could look like. So this is the second question that I'd like to ask. So typically, what I would be interested in hearing your views on the main condition for a transformation of the ecosystem towards what actually the blockchain technology wants to deliver, i.e. a more trustless, permissionless, and ultimately more decentralized ecosystem. So let me start with you, Angela. As I said, you have already shared the vision behind Bidata Grey and also the main pain points of the industry that you want to solve with your project. But what would it take to the blockchain industry to develop towards this more decentralized cloud service, in particular cloud computing? What are the necessary steps?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. I think that the main thing is to try to educate more the applications. I mean, in the Web3 space, because it's the space that we are tackling with the project. We think that the applications need to be more educated on the potentials of decentralized projects of cloud computing, because decentralized project can be efficient enough, fast enough for this kind of applications. Obviously, from the other side, from the side of the project that have to provide something, an offer to this kind of applications, it's important to be a valuable alternative to centralized projects. I don't think that centralized providers have to disappear completely, because I believe that the market has to let's say, see the coexistence of different networks and different models. So it's important, but it's important that there are also providers in the decentralized space. Otherwise, there is no choice, and the application are constrained to still remain on traditional models and use the same providers. I think that the action that has to be taken, it has to start from the protocols themselves, because protocols are the foundations of the industry, of the Web3 industry. So protocols have to incentivize their nodes, their validators, to be more independent, to be less cloud hosted inside server farms, because at the moment the reality is that protocols are doing almost nothing to incentivize their nodes to go outside the server farms. So I think it's a collaboration between protocols and new projects that are working in the space. And I think that the key for the industry to evolve, to move forward, is the diversification of the market.
What do you mean by diversification of the markets?
I mean that it's essential to have different players that are managing this market, because at the moment the market it's for 90% or even more managed by centralized providers, and these centralized providers are just few providers. So I mean that it's not possible to see now a complete overtaken of decentralized providers on centralized ones. I mean that an important improvement is just to have a more diversified market.
Okay. I see what you mean. Thanks, Angela. So let's move to you, JT. So from 100,000 targeted users to billions users. So what is really the transformation on the industry that needs to happen to really to support your development plan from your perspective?
Yeah, so I think the first thing comes from understanding what things need to be decentralized and why. So I think those main use cases are protection of user data, privacy, some level of security, and then the creation of secure environments for users to be able to interact, right? And that's the base layer of basically any social or decentralized project, right, will have those 4 things. And then what that allows you to do, if you can really nail that on the decentralized backend, right, you create those services. So, you know, then it becomes a lot easier to focus on the kind of hard processing power that's required on the centralized front end, right? So like for us to get, you know, if we're going to roll out this metaverse for, let's say, like 150 million people in America, right? The thing here is Hedera Hashgraph, who are the DLT, there needs to be a close collaboration between the decentralized like cloud providers and Hedera Hashgraph, and that integration for all apps on the Hedera network needs to be solid and consistent. But then, you know, when we're talking about mixed reality, there's a concept called the AR cloud now, which essentially says, well, maybe we should build a specialized front-facing cloud that allow multiple mixed reality or augmented reality projects to build on it, just because it requires so much processing power. So I think what will help the diversification of the market is people understanding what the use cases are. And for me, like the decentralized use cases are very clear and they're very well understood because people talk about the values of blockchain for exactly those reasons, right? Security and privacy and kind of secure interaction. So we know that. What we don't really know, and that's why we're here, you know, we're one of the first to market in terms of, you know, what are the functional front ends, which also need scaling. And I think where we are currently in the maturity, you know, point in the development of the industry is we don't really know. Like, I think we look at Meta's version of the metaverse and we're like, VR at home, like computers, like fine. But I think when you start to understand that there are more like publicly social, like, yeah, so I think the AR cloud will be a big first step to kind of understanding that. And then other use cases, you know, just think about like the digital art market. So for instance, you know, the hosting of digital art events, collaborative performances, essentially that front end to host like publicly accessible social events. Those use cases are very different and they can be, and, you know, people will innovate in that space for years. But I think that back end, the core principles of what decentralized kind of applications should be, like, I think that's now quite well understood. So we need to see a couple of, you know, maturity in that market, because we expect 2 or 3 big players to come through, offer the full range of services for them to integrate with all of the different DLTs. And I think that will actually help speed up the innovation and the creation of more actual Web3 front-end applications, because it will just simplify the process of people having to build with those providers. So that's what I think.
Thank you, JT. So we checked definitely this AR cloud concept. I was not aware of this one. So thanks for the reference. So let's move to you, Omar. So from your perspective, you have any views about the transformation of the industry that you can anticipate? So, I mean, obviously you can talk about OVH Cloud now roadmap, as you alluded to it during the intro. But do you think that there will be quite a fundamental transformation of the business model of a traditional cloud service provider such as OVH Cloud? And even potentially a journey towards a more decentralized service, such as decentralized compute power?
Thank you for the floor, Nicola. I honestly would like to make an amendment to your question, and rather than transformation, I would use a word development. Okay. Because in my opinion, if we're moving forward we're developing, we don't have to be honest with you, transform things. We have to develop things moving forward. Yeah. Now, it was very interesting to listen to you, JT and Angela, on your views. Now, I agree with 99.8% of the things that you said.
Like USLA, no, maybe.
No. It's clear. For me, there are 3 points that are going to that are very fundamental in regards to blockchain and what is going to be as a transformation journey. Decentralization is one of them. Second one is regulations. Third one is education. Coming up to the first one. what is a decentralization? It is not necessarily, and I would like to elaborate Angela's point on decentralization. It doesn't have to be a bad thing that a centralized cloud player, I would transform centralized to traditional, because a traditional cloud provider it doesn't have to be centralized. We are decentralized. Multi-locality of the services, multi-locality of the data centers that are hosting networks are actually the fundamental of decentralization. And now looking one step further, rather than using one cloud service provider, adding a multi-cloud scenario. So looking at cloud service providers that have that enterprise-grade networking solutions, such as interconnecting on a private network, one cloud service provider's locations, and I'm talking about enabling 10, 20 locations, to another, or to 3 or 4 other cloud service providers, would give you a mesh of decentralized solutions, not being centralized within one traditional cloud service provider, and building a compute cloud on top of all of that. That is a real decentralization that I would call a transformation of the blockchain ecosystem. Now, in my opinion, this is a collaboration between young players such as Angela's company and ambitious people that are trying to create that, but in partnership with traditional cloud service providers such as OVH Cloud. And Angela, we welcome you to have a conversation, as I told you before. Now, the next step, and in the next point, which I would love to make, is the regulations. Guys, and in my opinion, this is all yet to come. But looking at history likes to repeat itself, and we know it's a wheel, right? Now, blockchain is an innovative technology. Now, if we look at applications of blockchain technology, it doesn't have to always be DeFi or logistics and transportation. We have many verticals, such as finance, such as healthcare. Now, looking at those verticals outside of the blockchain technology, so traditionally hosted on those kind of verticals, the infrastructure itself has to be regulated, because it's an old vertical. It has been regulated in every single sense. Now, in my opinion, those are yet to come. But just thinking out futuristically and thinking out loud, in my opinion, those regulations might come. For example, if you are developing a banking system with a payment processing application, you need to have a PCI DSS certified infrastructure, which is a fundamental change to how infrastructure itself is operated, redundant, highly available, and even supply AC, electricity supply to the infrastructure itself has to be redundant. So those regulations, those little steps that might come into the space. Now, coming up to the third point, which is what is the education that is needed? And as JT rightfully said, education of the players for us to be able to create mass adoptions of the solutions that blockchain technology is going to offer has to be on a high level. Now, we don't need to only educate people that are creating or building the solutions for them to be seamlessly able to use the solution or easily accessible. If you're going to YouTube, for example, okay, it's not a decentralized, it's not a blockchain solution, yeah, but it's so intuitive and it's so easy to use that we got used to it. Now, for us in Web3, in decentralized and blockchain space, for those solutions to be actually adopted by masses, those solutions needs to be educated. Why is it better? But as well, the quality of the product has to be at a top 100% level. But as well, on the other hand, guys, the policymakers, the regulators of the world, the governmental institutions, they need education as well. Yes, we are in a tech space. We are lucky. We're gifted. We're passionate about what we talk about, and we know that those infrastructures rely on a certain technology, on a certain infrastructure, on certain protocols, but not everyone is lucky enough to understand that. So the education, in my opinion, piece is a very important part, and not only from the consumers, and builders, but as well for the policymakers. And where is the market emerging? I think that Angela is stepping into a very nice space, but JT as well. We are looking at two separate development paths. One, decentralization of cloud computing resources based, in my opinion, on traditional cloud service providers in partnership with them. But the second part is how the technology is going to enable the next generation of social platforms, is where JT is tapping into the space. And I think it's going to be a wonderful journey. And I think we're lucky enough to experience that from the ground up.
Right, it's a great conclusion of the panel discussion. So I have a lot of questions, but I'd like to leave the floor to the audience. Otherwise, as I said, I'm happy to raise a question first, or I mean, we can also entertain a question or counter arguments from the panelists themselves, since they are sharing although quite common commonalities, they're coming from different perspectives. So let me then start a question about transparency, which has not been really addressed that much as part of the so-called pain points of the cloud ecosystem. So we see blockchain is really enabling transparency fully. So what do you think about the current state of the world with respect to transparency about pricing and customization of pricing delivered by cloud service provider? And maybe Angela, you can take this one to start with, if it's also part of the pain point that you'd like to address.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. Yeah, about the transparency, I mean, what, for example, my project is providing is a transparent, like, let's say, exchange of data from the final user to the supplier, which is processing the data. Obviously, for certain application, maybe it's better to have more, let's say, non-deterministic way, which is the way in which you can cover, let's say, for privacy focus, the data of the user. But it's also something that we need to see different kind of use cases and in which case it's necessary to have more transparency or not of the data. I mean, in terms of pricing, you asked about the pricing, right? Yeah. Yeah, as said, I think it's possible for decentralized providers also to be competitive with centralized providers in terms of pricing. In our network, for example, we can use, like, for example, the tokenomics of our token that will be used as payment method inside the ecosystem as also an inflationary rate for a reward for the validators that are supplying the service. In this way, we can keep low the price for the final user and also be more profitable for the supplier itself. Even because also from the side of the supplier itself, to be cloud hosted, it's not so cheap. If we take as example AWS is very expensive because from the side of the supplier, which is cloud hosted inside AWS, there is the margin of the AWS and then the margin of the validator. So in this case, if you set up an independent activity, for example, in areas where the electricity is not so expensive, we can think about Iceland or Tanzania, the price of AWS, it's 20 times higher than an independent activity of bare metal machine set up in this area. So we think that we can compete in terms of pricing very well. We just need to provide a valuable solution in terms of efficiency, low latency, and for the applications. Otherwise, application will continue to pay more for a centralized service.
Yeah. So thanks.
Nicola, can I come back and
yeah, of course. Yeah. I think.
Yeah,
I will dedicate the last minutes of the call for the panelists to counter argument or to add to what has just been said. Okay. Please go ahead, Omar, with your with your point.
Oh yeah, thank you. I thought you want to continue at the end. No, I just wanted to complement what Angela said. It's about the business model and what I said at the beginning of the presentation around building those technologies itself. And this is why, in my opinion, it's gonna come years to come, because if you are building a decentralized cloud computing a protocol, and you are not going to depend on traditional cloud service providers, you would need to have an unimaginable capital of investments to create those data centers in the likes of Tanzania or Iceland, to be able to build that co-location center, then build the networking itself, and then be able to optimize the costs or counter the traditional cloud service provider model. Now, OVH Cloud, on the other hand, for example, we are transparent in our pricing. We don't charge for ingress egress model, and we build our own service from the ground up, so that I think it's very affordable.
So we are almost hitting the 1 hour. So what I'd like to do very quickly is ask each panelist to tell the audience. Anyway, it's recorded, so we'll be broadcast that to our community. So to tell the audience how they can be reach out if they were interested in knowing more about that, because I'm quite conscious that a lot of things have been poured to the audience, but maybe quite interested in knowing more about each respective project. So let me start with you, Angela. How can we reach out to you? How can we get more information about your project?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, our website, b-datagray.com. You find there all our socials. You can directly contact us on the contact us page. Then you find me directly on LinkedIn or on Telegram, Twitter. So I'm very active. I try to be also very quick on the response. And then you can find... Sorry?
Low latency still.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously all our code is on our GitHub, so it's open source. You can check it. We are working on the proof of concept of the infrastructure, so let's check it out.
Super, thank you. Omar, next to you.
Sure. So ovhcloud.com is our main website. I would like to invite every single person listening and watching us to go and inspect that. But my LinkedIn, personal LinkedIn, Omar Abi Isa, is always open for a message. I'm always open to send an invite and inspect the project, or give some advices, or listen to the criticity, or whatever it is. And yeah. Happy to speak to anyone that has a need or a question or something to raise.
Yeah. Thank you, Omar. GT, and the final word from you.
So our website is oneupmetaverse.com, so you can see everything that we're doing on there. And then Nicholas, maybe you can send out my email address and LinkedIn profile, and people can contact me, because yeah, always happy to speak to people.
Super. Thank you. So, I mean, just 1 minute after the cut. So it's, I think, a great achievement to cover so many topics. So there was a lot of commonalities across the three interventions. I mean, talking about the pain points and not the transformation to some extent, but the development of the ecosystem. To paraphrase you, Omar, I like to say that, again, a lot of things needs to happen on the back end, on the front end, on the development side. It's good to see that actually incumbents or so-called traditional cloud provider is also rolling out, blockchain-specific strategy to help and support projects. So I mean, I'd like to thank you, the three of you, and also the audience. And as I said, we'll share the recording link to the community anytime soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.